Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us for yet another Oxford Sparks Facebook Live. The topic of today's session is how to have fun with energy, which I'm sure you're all really intrigued to find out about. How can we have fun with energy? So it's really apt then that we're here with Phil, who's the Deputy Director of Energy Research, part of the Environmental Change Institute at the University of Oxford. So hi there, Phil.
Hi, Michaela, and thanks for having me.
So energy, it's something we all use, but maybe we could just start by talking a little bit about why you're interested in energy and maybe why we should be interested in energy.
Well, yeah, as you say, we all use energy all the time. I mean, the moment you get up, if you didn't have any energy, you wouldn't get up. We need energy for all we do. When you make a coffee in the morning, if you didn't have energy, that'd be cold coffee, that's not fun. Getting to work takes energy. Everything we do really has energy supporting us in the background, and it does that so magically, we're not aware of it. It does great things for us, and every now and then I guess it might be worth being thankful for all the fun we are able to have because of energy. And the work that we're trying to do here is trying to shine a bit of light on all the things that energy does for us.
So in particular, you're interested in some of the sort of problems that come about, say, in how much energy we're using over a particular period of time. Could you introduce us to the idea of the peak demand problem?
Yes, well, the peak demand problem is one of my favorite problems. I can show you maybe for a start what electricity use actually looks like in the UK, because we don't think about it much. And it seems like a constant thing, whenever you plug something in, the electricity is there. But if you look at, so I've got here a 3D graph of the electricity use in the UK for the month of January. And if you look at it from this way, from your right to the left, it's a sort of 24-hour day. You can see here how it ramps up in the morning, then you've got this plateau throughout the day, and that's the peak demand that we just referred to. And then goes down in the evening. I mean, at night, obviously, we're not using all that much electricity, but all these ups and downs, they have to be basically dealt with by all the power stations that deliver the electricity. And, these times when it goes up, they have to get into motion. And then, these peak moments are especially interesting because that's when we're pretty much at capacity. All the power stations have to be ready for that. And this is sort of the crunch time. When people talk about the lights going out, this is where the danger would be the greatest, because you can't really afford lots of things to go wrong at that point. This is a fun graph. It's a sort of 3D print of electricity use. You can turn it around, and then you've got the 31 days of January, and this is fun to look at because you can very visibly see how you've got sort of a repetitive pattern, and that's the weeks. So during the week, in the evening, we've got quite high consumption, and in the weekends, some pretty profound valleys in our little mountain range here. And that, of course, has to do with, the weeks is when, a lot of things happen. People work, they come home from work, they have to get meals ready. It's all quite compacted, and that sort of causes these peak demand moments, which, at the moment we're dealing with really admirably, but it's going to get more difficult as we try to, rely less on fossil fuel power stations, which are very good at ramping up and being available. But if you want to bank on renewables, then this is a tricky time of day. Sort of 5:30 on a winter's evening, the sun rarely shines. So we need to think of new solutions. Two very interesting contenders for that are to build some storage. The sun is shining, the wind is blowing, you store it. And then when the demand peaks, you dip into that store and everything is fine. But this is quite a transformatively different network to what we've got at the moment. We've got some massive changes on the way. And the work that we're doing here at Oxford is, on the one hand, we're trying to develop the technologies that make electricity, photovoltaics, smarter, more efficient generators and fuel cells and the like, and catalysts and all that good work. But we're also working on storage technologies. And then we try to work out how do all these things fit together. How do we build a system out of these new components? And the big unknown in all this is, could this shape actually change? These peaks, they're very costly to provide for. And at the moment, something really perverse is happening. So we already have more and more renewables on the system. They're becoming cheaper by the day. In fact, renewables are now so cheap that conventional power stations struggle to compete with them. So in the next 10 years or so, you can expect renewables to really displace and retire a lot of conventional power stations. But what we're doing at the moment to make up for the loss in flexibility, they've been very good at doing all this ramping up and down. We're currently paying, coal-fired power stations to stay online. They get money just to be here for backup. And a lot of the ups and downs, we're claiming we're doing demand response, i.e. the idea that you give people money to not use electricity. But in truth, a lot of that is actually diesel generators that sit behind the meter. So people, it looks like they're turning off their lights, but in fact what they turned on is a diesel generator, which makes it look like they're using less electricity. But really, we're using quite unregulated, highly polluting generators instead of maybe smarter solutions like storage or shifting demand.
But this change is happening. So just last week, I think it was, we had our first ever day without coal-powered energy since Victorian times. So this is actually happening, isn't it?
Exactly. I mean, this is quite an exciting transition. And for years we thought, okay, renewables are sort of a nice greeny type solution, and now they're really pushing into the market, and the conventional utilities really struggle to cope with these new operating situations. The funny thing about renewables, because we think of them as very expensive, because the sun and the wind are free at the time that they're generating, they can bid into the market at any sort of price, and coal can't compete with that. So yeah, coal is now struggling to deliver, which for the climate and the environment is a wonderful thing. For the energy system, it's quite an upheaval.
Yeah, and so your particular interest and area of research, I guess, if we're looking at this, you said we can hope to maybe change the shape of this graph. I have less energy being used at this particular time, so that there's less demand in that short space of time, which, as you said, was really tricky to provide for. So what is happening in that peak?
I wish I knew. I mean, that's the exciting thing. We do a lot of work on modeling and sort of predicting these profiles, but what actually happens at this moment, we barely know, and that's where our research comes in. So
it's not the break after EastEnders then?
Well, the break after EastEnders is a famous example. So the narrative is that when the EastEnders outbreak comes on, everybody rushes to the kettle, turns the kettle on, and because that happens in a synchronized way, everybody does it at exactly the same time. You've got a very sudden increase in demand, so you need power stations that can ramp up very, very fast. In fact, most power stations aren't good at that, so we've got some special tricks up our sleeves. So one is pumped hydro storage in northern Wales. We've got literally pumping water from a lake up a mountain when electricity is available, and if you suddenly need it, like in that Coronation outbreak, they can open the valves and the water rushes down the mountain and we generate electricity from that. That's one way. The other one is our friends in continental Europe. We've got interconnectors with those countries, and if the outbreak leads to a sudden surge in electricity, we can borrow some electricity from them. But that's not the moment when we use most electricity. So that problem there is it's highly synchronized. When everybody does something at the same time, that puts a special stress on the system. I mean, I'm not suggesting we do this, but if everybody turned on their washing machine at exactly the same time, the grid wouldn't be able to cope. You'd really cause it to break. So don't do that. But it shows that we're relying on the diversification of everybody doing things at slightly different times, so that overall we end up with what is actually a relatively smooth profile. I mean, if you compare this to the use profile of a household, they're far more spiky and have much, much higher peaks. So by having this national grid and pooling all our electricity demand, we're already helping to smooth the profile quite a bit.
And so your work is around trying to see what people are actually doing then?
So I mean, let me start with what we do know. We know pretty exactly how much electricity is needed at any moment in time, and that's all that the generators needed to know. They know how much is required. They turn their power stations on as you need. What we don't know, as you say, is what that was used for. And in the past, it didn't matter. As long as you know how much electricity is required, you turn on the power stations, all is good. Now we're coming to a completely different game where we try to understand, can we move the timing of demand? If the sun isn't shining, the wind isn't blowing, is there anything we can do to avoid using electricity? And for that, it suddenly starts to matter what we're actually doing with that electricity. Is it stuff that really has to happen there and then? Is it something that we're quite happy to do some other time? And if we're happy to do it some other time, what does it take? Do you need to be given money or information, or can we come up with smart technologies that suddenly automatically schedule when things are on? So all those options are there, but we need to understand much better what actually goes on in people's lives and what the electricity does for them. So if you think of watching a really exciting football match, well, the last thing you want to do is suspend that just because the grid is asking for a favour. Whereas if the television is running in the background and it gets automatically dimmed down and nobody's really watching it, it doesn't matter. But we need to find out what we're using electricity for, and then we can get much better at understanding where the flexibility is and how we can tap into it.
So that's good. You're not telling us not to make our cups of tea. Just maybe think about when we do that. But that's great. So can you tell us a bit about how you're trying to find out then? Tell us how you're doing your research.
Yes, so we've got a study ongoing. In the past, what we had to do was go into people's houses, send engineers, wire up all the different appliances to find out what's going on. Very expensive, very intrusive. What we're doing now is actually far more fun. So we basically just send people a little parcel. If they register on joymeter.uk, you get a parcel with a little electricity recorder which you can just clip onto your meter. It's fully automatic. You don't have to do anything. It just records away. And then the other thing you get, everyone in your household gets one of these clever little activity recorders, and I'm really quite pleased with those, because in the past we used paper diaries, which you had to fill in. It's quite laborious and actually a little bit boring. Whereas the app that we've now got makes it quite fun. In fact, we find people get quite competitive about entering what they're doing. So you've got two buttons here. You can say what you're doing now, and then it asks you where you are. And then with 2-3 clicks, you get through to quite a good description of what you're doing. And then at the end comes my favourite question. It always asks you, how much do you enjoy what you're currently doing? Which initially we added in almost for a bit of fun, but it turns out to be almost the most exciting bit of information we're getting out of this study. So we now get a national picture of the sort of things that people enjoy, the things they don't enjoy, and that might, in the end, have quite an important bearing on when we're willing to change what we're doing. And also brings us back to that first question we had, where does energy help us have fun? Which is worth finding out, because then we can have a bit more of it.
So have you come across any interesting or surprising results so far? I know your study is not finished yet, but have you come across any... So you said this question of, is it fun? But I don't know, maybe out of there, have there been any particularly interesting or surprising results that you've seen?
Well, one thing that surprised me on the fun front is that everybody seems to think that Monday is a really miserable day. The good news is Monday is just as miserable as every other weekday, and weekends are more fun. So that was good to see. Don't know how much that helps us, but I thought it was intriguing. There's other things, like you very often find that actually doing things with other people is fun. When others are around, we're having more fun. Interestingly, when you're distracted, when you're doing multiple things, that often is when you're having less fun. If you're doing lots of parallel things, that's when sort of stress comes in. So all those things are quite visible. But the most profound one is having other people around, doing sociable things. That's where a lot of the fun is.
And so are you thinking you might then take those particular activities as things to target future interventions for? So, is the hope that in getting this information about what people are doing and what they enjoy doing, that you could push people in a direction in a way that they enjoy, that will help them, think about their energy usage and change their behaviour?
Yes, and we can also observe when we push them. The thing is, what we don't want to do. This study is not about wagging the finger and, thou shalt not use electricity. In fact, electricity does such fantastic things for us. It would be a shame not to be able to use it. I think what we're trying to do is use it in such a way that the whole system can be operated cheaper and our bills go down without, making us change our lives in dramatic ways. So what we can do is we can make suggestions, again, through this app, of things people could do differently. Like we can suggest, why don't you not do housework at a certain time?
Sold.
Well, exactly. And then if we see that people are happier and their load profile is improved, then that, to me, seems like a win-win.
Can you see any potential negatives from doing that? Because I imagine if someone said to me, like, oh, hey, do you maybe not want to do your laundry right now? I'd be like, yeah, I don't want to do my laundry right now. And I might never end up doing it. So, can you foresee any potentially outside of the box kind of negative impacts from something like this?
Yeah, we want to avoid, the important thing here is we're testing and suggesting. We're not dictating or instructing. This is purely to find out, where flexibility is. And in fact, the main thing we try to find out is, what would stop us from being flexible. It can be very simple things. A lot of, this shape is not governed by us. We don't necessarily decide when we want to do the washing. There's so little time in the day to do it. All these constraints dictate what window is left to do the washing. So potentially we can find out if there's things that we can do to help people, ease the stresses on their life. And then suddenly you can find a different time to use electricity. So hopefully we can help.
So really, you might want to be talking to, say, washing machine manufacturers to put in a delay start or nighttime quiet wash mode on their machine, things like that?
Yeah. The first we've already got, so these smart washing machines that exist where you can dial a timer and it then runs in the night. But the second point you mentioned is quite important. Washing machines are noisy. And there are certain times you just don't want it to come on. So, if you set it in the evening and suddenly some central control algorithm decides when it actually comes on and when it does the spinning, that might get on your nerves as well. So we need to find out what are the things that could be really frustrating and annoying. And the other thing that's worth bearing in mind is, we're all quite different. Some people are perfectly happy to engage with all this stuff and can't get enough of technology and are happily trading in the market to see if they can reduce their electricity bills by changing their timing. That's not for everyone. And we need to find out if we're asking people to change the timing of electricity use, as you say, are there people who lose out? Are we putting too much burden on some people in society? Because at the moment the system is really smart. We can use electricity as and when, no questions asked. So to go back to a system where somehow your timing is restricted, or you have, like you have in train usage, peak time pricing, that might not be for everyone. And I think we need to find out to what extent we're inconveniencing people, or if there are certain groups in society who are quite happy, then you can target those and leave the others in peace.
Well, if anyone's just joined us, we're talking everything energy with Phil here, who's the Deputy Director for Energy Research in the Environmental Change Institute at the University of Oxford. We're discussing energy use, power consumption, particularly in homes, and how people's behaviour affects that, and when we hit peak demand. If you have any questions at all about anything to do with energy, I guess, we'll try and answer them. We'll just explore, so this idea of peak demand, if we just go back to that for a second then. So you showed us your graph here, and you mentioned how we can see that there are troughs on weekends. We can see that in the mornings here, there's less energy, and then obviously as we're getting up and going to work, and then it hits this peak here. Is there one particular day or time of year that's the worst? And why is that?
Yeah, well, apparently there's 3 days that are the worst. So the National Grid assigns the 3 highest demands that we've got, and then people have to pay extra if they used energy at that time. It's called triad. And yeah, people try to avoid that, but the difficult thing is you don't know which 3 times of the year there are, so that you get told afterwards, in a sense. But yeah, those are expensive times, and they typically occur during the winter in the evening. That's when our demand typically peaks, and that's quite specific to the UK. We're a cold country, we're dark in winter, so you need lighting, you need heating. All those things happen on winter evenings.
I suppose it does kind of beg the question then, in terms of things people are doing that are using energy energy in their homes, and that's contributing to this peak demand. You were talking about what people might want to do in terms of changing their behaviour or what might be convenient for them in energy use. But I mean, there are just going to be some things which are highly, they use a lot of energy. Things like heating, surely there's going to be things like that we have no control of?
Yeah, I mean, heating is a fascinating topic because at the moment we use gas for most of our heating, but that could change. So the idea is that first we decarbonise our electricity, and then we could use electricity to heat our homes. But that, of course, adds enormous amounts of energy use onto, potentially exactly those cold winter evenings. So for one, we've slightly backed off this idea of electrifying heating completely, and we're looking at other complementary options, maybe sustainable gas and what have you. But the other thing that's interesting about heating, of course, is that unlike electricity, which is really, really difficult to store and expensive, heat can be stored to some extent. So you could envisage that, for example, back in the 70s we installed a lot of night storage heaters. At the time that was because we had nuclear power, and nuclear wanted to run through the night. They don't like turning off. So what you could do is use your night storage heaters to charge up at night and then release the heat during the day. Trouble was very often that didn't work. They pipe out heat in the morning, and in the evening you're cold. Apparently they've got a lot better, so we're going to use those potentially for some of that load shifting. And there's some research going on in this group here where we try to find out, for one, are these night storage heaters better than they were? Are people happy to have night storage heaters? They've got a bad reputation in a sense. And then we'll see, can they help to do some of this shifting for us? Because heating is one of those things, it's storable, so let's use it for flexibility.
Great. And we have been talking about the UK, but hello to those watching from Poland. And they've also sent in a question. So they've asked, what do you think about solar roads? I don't know if you've seen the video that's been going around about solar roads.
I haven't.
You haven't?
Yeah.
Oh my
What
gosh,
have I missed?
It's quite exciting. It's basically robust solar panel type things that can be built into the roads.
Right.
So as units that you just use to pave a road, basically.
Wow.
And they say that the hope is that will solve all of our energy problems, because we'll just be getting so much energy because all of our roads will be collecting solar power, basically.
We'll need lots more roads.
Do you think there are enough roads for this to work?
Well, I think there's certainly enough roads. I have to say, PV is one of those things that got me into this sector in the first place. So I used to work as an engineer making solar panels, and it was quite obvious quite early on that the cost of PV has the most fantastic reduction potential. And we now hear that people tell us, we couldn't have foreseen that PV becomes so cheap. Quite frankly, yes, we could have foreseen that, and we can foresee it still. You can see some learning curves that suggest that the cost of PV is just going to continue to fall.
Well, someone's asking just that. They want to get solar, but say it's too expensive. Will the cost come down? So presumably...
Yeah, which country is this from?
Not sure.
Right. It slightly depends on where you live, but I don't want to suggest you wait because the costs keep coming down. To begin with, we needed lots of feed-in tariffs and subsidies to make PV work. We're now getting to the point where the costs really are coming down to an extent that you can almost do it subsidy-free, especially in sunny areas. But even in the UK, there are sunny areas, one wouldn't believe. So that is going to come through. And I should probably stress, some of the work here at Oxford has discovered new materials for photovoltaics that can bring the cost down even further. Perovskites is the watchword there. So whether we build them in the roads or on fields or on roofs, I think PV has a lot to offer us in coming years.
And then we have another question here. Thanks, keep them coming in. The question is, have you heard of a new product called green running? Apparently machine learning has nailed this issue.
Green running?
Green running, yes.
Well, can people write in and explain what it is?
We'll take that as a no. So whereabouts are you then in your research just now? How many people have been involved, and how many more people do you want to be involved? What's your dream here for your research?
As I said earlier, the important thing is that we're all different. Electricity use is quite individual. Households use it differently depending on your appliance on. So in short, we need lots and lots of households to take part in this study to make it representative. The ballpark figure is usually 2,000 households, and you've got something that's statistically robust. We're sort of 10-15% there, so we're making progress in that direction. But quite frankly, I wouldn't even stop at 2,000. The more we get to take part in this study, the better our representation of the society as a whole, and the more people we have taking part, the more detail we can understand, and the more robust our findings become. So the more the merrier.
Can you see in the data like different sorts of people and their behaviours? I mean, can you start to categorise people and then direct different sorts of interventions at them, or pass on insights to, I don't know, energy companies about the way they present their bills to people?
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you think there are lots of interesting insights you can get out in that sense?
Lots and lots and lots. So, I mean, one of the jobs we've got now that the data is sort of coming in is to make sense of it. And of course, there are fascinating insights you get from everyday activities. So one of the specific areas we try to understand is coming back to this peak demand. Initially I assumed that at peak demand everybody uses a lot of electricity. Not the case at all. Some people use loads of people use very little. So we want to find out, what do the people who have high consumption during those hours, what do they have in common? And there are sort of trends like people with children, for example, are more likely to be using a lot of electricity during these times for obvious reasons. They have to be at home, they've got to look after them, keep them warm, keep them lit, and that then helps us to understand where the demand comes from, but also which people you better leave alone when you ask it to reduce it.
That's cool. We've actually had another question here, which is, if we had to take 3 things away, what would you suggest? Or stop doing 3 things, what would you suggest?
Oh, that's a very good question. I mean, let me say, I don't want to take anything away. It's good enough if you sort of just displace it in time. I'll tell you what you don't need to take away, and that is your mobile phone charger. And in fact, I'm on almost a bit of a campaign to stop people worrying about the mobile phone charger. I've done a little survey here with our students at the University of Oxford, who you think should know very well what things use. And they thought that mobile phone chargers are responsible for nearly 10% of our consumption, which is way off. They're less than 1%. Mobile phone chargers are not the sort of thing you need to take away. So the things that use a lot of energy obviously are white goods, your washing machines, your tumble dryers, the fridges. So if you've got an old fridge, that can be a colossal waste of electricity. One funny thing that seems to happen is that when people invest in a new, efficient fridge, there's a tendency to take your old fridge, put it in the garage and use it as a beer fridge. Now that is a bad idea, because these fridges, they were inefficient to begin with, and after years of service they get colossally inefficient. And that can, in some cases that was 60% of somebody's use was just that beer fridge humming away in the garage. So that's one, beer fridge, take that away, don't shift it, just put it away. And then, think about white goods. Anything that uses hot water can be quite energy intensive.
Do you think there are any surprising things that maybe people don't realise use quite as much energy as they do?
So things that use more energy than
things that use more energy than people expect them to.
Yeah, it's the sort of things that run in the background that sometimes surprise us. The fridge is a good example. You don't think of the fridge as doing much, it's just there, but because it's constantly running, it's the sort of thing that adds up. And that's one of the unfortunate side effects of if you have an in-home display, they usually light up bright red when you use a lot of power. So turn on the kettle, that's 2 kilowatts, the thing goes bright red, and you think, okay, the kettle is a really big culprit. The thing with the kettle is it's only on for a minute or so. So in terms of energy, it doesn't use that much. Whereas the fridge, quietly humming away in the background, that is a high consumer. So maybe the other piece of advice is if you get a really efficient fridge, the other thing you can do is don't get a bigger fridge than you need. Because bigger fridges, even if they're A-star rated, they still use a lot of energy.
There's quite a few things that we can do. And then obviously light bulbs, that's a question that's coming. What about light bulbs? Are there better makes than others? Obviously you have your consumer choice to choose, but yes, types of light bulbs.
Yeah, don't mention any brands. Yeah. Light bulbs are an interesting one because they have made such a dramatic difference already. I mean, you know, when we talk about reducing peak demand, the light bulb already has got us a long way, because light bulbs obviously tend to be on during these hours, and anybody who still believes that incandescent light bulbs are a good idea, they really aren't anymore. I mean, in a sense, they're just heating elements. You know, with the convex fluorescent, we made great progress, but now with LEDs, you're really, you know, a step change away from the energy consumption that lighting used to have. Slight side effect is we're now putting in far more lights. They use a lot less, but we use more of them and we leave them on more. But you know, the progress in lighting is fantastic. My personal gripe with lighting is I always try to be an early adopter with these things, and I mean both with the convex fluorescents, the early models, and especially the ones that were sort of given away for free, they were awful. You know, they took forever to come on, and the light was really not very nice. And I had the same with LEDs. They gave you this very cold light, which that's not nice. So I shopped around quite a long time to find a slightly warmer light from LED lights, and I found that they're out there. Just shop around.
If maybe people want to find it, they can email you directly to find out what that is.
Yeah, I can pass that.
But it's one of these things we expect will get better with time, and I suppose as consumers we can challenge manufacturers to do better, because it'll help save you money in the long run, I guess. And so a good bit of advice would still be turn the lights off when you're not using them and get better light bulbs.
Yes, I mean, if you still have any of these tungsten bulbs, really do get rid of them. They burn your money, and replacing them. I mean, it's for some people it's difficult to get their head around, because of course in the shop you pay more for a low energy light bulb. You know, the old ones used to be £1, now you pay £6 for one. But believe it or not, they pay for themselves incredibly quickly. It's a no-brainer in economic terms.
Yeah, well, keep questions coming in. I wanted to ask, so you mentioned that you were an engineer. You are an engineer, and you started off with solar panels and things like that. And now you're doing what appears to be sort of sociological research, I guess. So what sparked that change?
Yeah, I think this is a response to the energy challenge in general. So you can think of it, you know, as an engineer, we love problems, and there is no bigger problem than energy in the 21st century. Well, I would say that, but so I'm drawn to problems, and especially here at Oxford, there's a very strong realization that we have to work across all those different disciplines, and I quite enjoy it. I mean, I love engineering, but understanding what people do just makes it all the more exciting.
Indeed. We've actually got quite a long comment here.
Yeah.
Greetings from Indianapolis in
Wow.
Indiana. Yeah, hello, going across the globe here. They said, our utility carrier often makes available on a voluntary basis some sort of box which attaches to our meter, located outside of our home, and from which they can control, for example, the temperature setting of our home during the day when most people are at work. Oops, sorry, I just need to scroll down. No, other way. We've broken our laptop here. No, here we go. While people at work or in the evening after you've gone to bed. He said actually, sorry, interesting technology, but my own personal concern and problem is in allowing control of my systems externally. They appreciate what they're trying to accomplish, but just like losing individual control. So I guess that's where the benefit of the sorts of things you're looking for come in that you're not trying to take ultimate control. But there are some companies, I believe, out there who, I think for more commercial places, they do try to take a smart external control of things.
Yeah. And very often sell it to you as giving you control. I mean, taking back control, of course, is a very popular claim in the UK. We all like to be in control, but you're right. I mean, a lot of these technologies take control away from you, and there's a real tension between making things smarter and losing control. So I completely sympathise that you don't want to give up control of your appliances if suddenly, you can just see the smarter these things get, the more likely something is going to go wrong. And we've seen it with some of these smart heating systems that something goes wrong and you sit in a cold house or overheat it. So you add to the risk. But as technology gets better and the offerings get better, people can choose, hopefully, the type of smart technology that works for them, or just not go for smart technology, which might work for some people.
also got more of a suggestion, I suppose, for all of Oxford. But anyway, I'll read it out to you and say what you think. So another question about offshore wind plants. Do you not think that the plants are not so natural and also makes too much changes of the environment? So I guess we're talking about the impact on the seabed and things like that. And wind plants bring cheap energy. Oh yeah, so it's maybe not a good look. Could Oxford check the possibility to use natural height and pressure difference in power generation? This might allow, say, the natural views, so it might look better. But I think you talked about these sort of storage approaches using hydro and things like that. So maybe just go over that again for those who weren't there then.
Well, the thing with the pumped hydro, pumping water up a lake, of course, it doesn't generate energy, it just stores it for a time. So you pump up water, and then you get the energy back, or large part of it, when you release it again. It's interesting that he mentions offshore wind, because just yesterday we had a colloquium here about offshore wind, and it was, the main criticism of offshore wind was not so much its visual appearance, because very often these things are sort of past the horizon and they go further and further out to sea, which makes sense for the wind turbines, because the wind is more constant further ashore, and they then create less visual impact. The really dramatic and really encouraging thing is how the cost of offshore have gone down in recent years. It was actually a technology that, unlike PV, where it was obvious that it's going to get cheaper and cheaper, we've now got engineering capabilities that allow us to build offshore at costs that are significantly lower than nuclear, for example. Nuclear we've had years and years of experience with, and if anything, the costs are going up, whereas offshore wind costs really are coming down. Yesterday we've seen figures on the order of £60 a megawatt. So it's promising, megawatt hour.
And that's probably a good time perhaps to come to a wrap. So obviously if you have any more questions, then keep them coming on. We'll send them to Phil, maybe he can answer afterwards. But obviously if you want to find out more about this, the meter project, how you can get involved, then go along to joymeter.uk. It also has some really great information on there and an animation, which we'll share the link to as well, so you can find out a little bit more about that. But thank you for watching. Thank you, Phil, so much. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say to everyone?
Well, do send the questions. I do my best to answer them. Yes, and I'll find out about some of the comments that came back. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks, everyone. And we'll see you for our next Facebook Live when that is. Thank you.